Hello and welcome to Tenbound. This is Professionalism versus Amateurism, or stalking versus persistence. Just a reminder that these sessions will be recorded, and you can follow us at Tenbound to stay up to date. And any questions you have during the sessions, please direct them in the Q&A portion, which is on the right side of the conversation. And without further ado, here is Jed Morrow.
Hey guys, thanks for joining. Super pumped to be talking about this, professionalism versus amateurism. I will just give a quick intro myself. I'll let Sean, Jessica, and Megan also do a quick intro as well. I'm a team lead for the outbound SDRs over at PandaDoc, manage a team of about 11 or 12 SDRs. Been doing it for about a year and a half, and I'm all about all things sales development. I'll give it to you, Sean, if you want to do a quick intro.
Perfect. My name is Sean Finder. I am the founder of AutoClose, which was acquired in October 2020. It is now a vanilla soft product. We are a sales engagement platform that allows you not only to automate your email outreach, but also tap into our database of over 30 million contacts for your prospecting at the top of the sales funnel. Jessica?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Jacobs. I'm over from Drift. I manage the outbound enterprise SDR team and our chat SDR team. Drift is a revenue acceleration platform that helps businesses generate more qualified pipeline faster and deliver better engagement and customer experience. Super excited to be here today. Toss it over to Megan.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, super excited to be here. My name is Megan Hannisko. I am the manager of sales development over at ZoomInfo. I am one of the many outbound SDR managers here at ZoomInfo. I manage about a team of 6. For ZoomInfo, we're a business-to-business sales and marketing intelligence solution. The core of what we do is contact data, but the way that we wrap it up is in a platform, constantly changing, firmographic information, intent, anything that go-to-market professionals would need to be able to engage with their prospects.
Awesome, good stuff. Let's kick it off. Really, I just want to start with when you think of professionalism versus amateurism, or persistence versus stalking. I'll just throw it out to the group here. What do you think is your difference between the two? What do you think of when you're comparing the two?
Well, I'll jump in first. The first thing I think about when thinking of professionalism or even persistence is, professionals dig deeper into what is that prospect really looking for. I think as a professional, you're going to try and not only help them with their current challenges, but also see, what are their short-term and long-term, interests or goals. Whereas if you're more on the amateur side, you're just going to be trying to go in there, making the sale, get the prospect to pay, finish your deal, send it over to your CSM and not worry about it. So I think the biggest difference is, professionalism is the trust and really getting to know your prospect, whereas the amateurs really try and use a more salesy approach, salesy emails, just to get that sale. But I'd love to hear what everyone else has to think about that, the difference.
Yeah, so immediately when I think of amateur, I just think of maybe the new outbound SDRs that even come on my team, right? It's not necessarily an entire organization where everyone goes on the phone like amateurs. I feel like everyone kind of hits that spot or starts out that way. And that's what I strive to do with even my team, is just listening to their calls and really making sure, exactly like Sean said, are you actually pointed with your conversations? Do you know your prospect? Or does it sound like you just connected with them out of a list of 200, right? So I think a lot of things go into that. We'll probably go over it further, but definitely something I think that all reps.
Yeah.
I think for me, the big differentiation is the ability to provide value and really understand what matters to the people that you're reaching out to. When you're emailing or calling or sending LinkedIn messages, they should leave that conversation or leave reading that email understanding what your platform is going to do for them and how it's going to help them personally or impact their business. And if you can't provide value and make sure that the people are understanding what you do, it's just going to go over their heads and they're not going to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first started as an SDR, I was making like 100 plus calls a day, pretty much just trying to get my pitch out to anybody that would listen. And it was like that for 3 months, right? And I think over time you start to figure out almost like what your niche is, who the prospects are that you're best at talking to. There was a few actionable things I did to kind of figure out what they actually cared about. One of the big ones for me was like going back and listening to demo recordings that I set up and like trying to extract the pain words or the things that they were saying in those deeper discovery calls, and then flipping that and using that in my prospecting calls as well. But I'd be curious to hear from you guys, like, what are some of the things that, maybe a newer SDR or a new salesperson can do to, start transitioning towards more of that professionalism and figuring out those things to provide a little more value?
I think for me, it would really be understanding personas. It doesn't matter what industry you're calling from or what product you're selling. You have to understand what matters to the different people that you're reaching out to. And if you understand what matters to different titles and different personas, you can really create a reputable process, whether it's a template or anything along those lines that you can add in, or relevant case studies based off of the industry. If you can understand the persona and the industry you're reaching out to, that's where the money's going to be.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, I always say it comes down to pains and gains. And I think the key thing you have to find is, what are those top 3 pains that prospect really has? Because in an email, on a call, if you can hit that pain right away, the prospect will give you the time of day to speak to them. So what I like to do, for example, in emails is in that first sentence is always know what that pain is. And like Jessica said, it'll be different in every industry. And the way you find that pain, even position-wise, it could be, a national sales manager has a different pain than a sales rep that has a different pain than a director, because each one has a different quote and each one has a different team. So I think, just touching upon what Jessica said, I would definitely make sure you know the buyer persona, but also know what pains are really going to hit that trigger for them to really want to correspond with you.
Right. I totally agree. And just going off of both of you guys, but just saying it in a different way, the word that comes to mind is relevancy, right? I feel like it's easy to go in with a generic pitch that you can use to anyone and everyone. And I feel like the first thing that comes through a prospect's mind is, this isn't applicable to me. Why is this person calling me, right? So what I always try and focus on is not directly going into the pitch, but asking relevancy-based questions, right? Maybe asking, hey, Sean, I want to make sure I saw your title as XYZ. I assume that you're overseeing these things. Do I have that correct? Asking more about what they're focusing on, their goals, and then going into that pitch, because you're building that trust, you're building that professionalism. It flows a lot better instead of just going directly into that agnostic pitch that you would use for anyone.
Yeah. And just to touch on what Megan said, one thing that I've really experienced is sometimes you really want to find out from the prospect, what is that decision-making plan going to look like? And in that, the person might be speaking to initially might not be the one that you have to pitch. So you kind of want to understand, okay, who's the first person to speak to, but who's the actual, to get this deal done, what are the 3 or 4 people? So then you can actually change your tone with each person until you find out, okay, well, Jed's the decision maker, and that's where I'm actually going to do the final pitch, where I'm going to keep warming up until I get to that person.
Yeah, to echo Sean, I think if you're setting up a discovery call for your account executive or anything along those lines, I think the more people you have on that call, the more effective it's going to be. It depends on what your business is set up for and how you get comped. But if you can have people from different departments or multiple people on a call, that will accelerate the deal cycle, and you're comfortable asking that on a cold call, who else would be involved in this decision? Is there anyone else in your team, or do you have a counterpart in a different department that would also be involved in these types of conversations? That's really good too.
Yeah. Oftentimes when I'm teaching some of my reps, and what I've done in the past as well is, if you're on a call with somebody, you're about to book the meeting or you're having a conversation, pull up their account on Sales Navigator, pull up their account in your CRM, and instead of asking who else would be good to have in the call, reference, name drop people, right? Oh, I see Sean, he's leading the sales department. Would he be a good person to have in that call? It speaks to that kind of professionalism. The account, the people that work there. You're name dropping them, so there's a level of professionalism there. I want to transition to the stalking and persistence side of things. A lot of reps, maybe they only have a certain number of accounts or they have a territory, so they kind of have to hit everybody a certain amount of times. How are you making sure, what advice can you give as far as making sure you're staying relevant and actually giving something of value, but still like, being persistent, reaching out, making your calls, emails, things of that nature?
I think for me, it's about breaking up your mode of communication. And so you don't just want to call the same person every single day for a month. Like, that's not effective. You want to be sending emails, you want to be calling, you want to be utilizing LinkedIn, you want to be using all the tools that you have, because you never know. Some people might never pick up the phone. Some people, email might be their preferred mode of communication. So if you're only utilizing one mode of communication, you could be really missing out. And also, I think a great way to personalize it is using a video tool, sending some kind of personalized message in a video when you're outreaching. Maybe it's just waving or putting that human touch and letting people understand that, okay, there is another person on the other side of this. I'm not just getting some templated email that's being blasted out to, every company in their CRM. It has to be personalized. And I think, video and various modes of communication are a great way to do that.
Yeah, going off of what's helped for me, and I know that we were talking about this a little bit when preparing for this session, is tact, tone, and timing, right? Just those 3 T's, keeping those aware in your mind. Tact, just sensitivity of the whole situation. Tone, how you're actually presenting what you want to say. And then timing. Are you sending your automated email sequence to go off at 1 a.m, or are you actually setting it where it's actually going to be a good time to reach that person? Are you aware of the time zone you're calling someone in? All of those things. I just think it comes back to a lot of awareness of how you're actually engaging with these people and just not letting it get slow.
Yeah, and just to touch on what Megan said, I think we spoke about this earlier, is I think people have to use more than one channel. You have to use many different channels, but also there's, I love to say LinkedIn a lot, and you can do stuff where it's not tangible. So you're not actually getting on a phone and speaking to a person. You're not emailing somebody and actually getting a reply, but you're doing things like, commenting on a post or sharing a post or connecting with them on LinkedIn. So you can do different tangible things to stay relevant and to stay in front of them, where it's not like you're always trying to call them and saying, okay, can we follow up? So I think you have to be, persistent, but you also have to find strategic ways where you can be persistent without actually having that person spend time with you on a call or an email.
We have go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so like going off of LinkedIn, I also think that's the difference between, persistence or professionalism versus stalking or just amateur going to market. Is, say if someone wants to connect on LinkedIn, I know that if I accept a mass amount of people, I'm going to have auto messages going in my inbox, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what is your message? Is it something like Sean said of like, hey, loved your post on XYZ, excited to connect with a like-minded person who loves whatever the topic is, right? Or are you just saying, thank you so much for connecting. Zoom info is this, and this tool. We get time in the calendar. It's just like, eye roll, right? So I would love if someone would connect and just say, oh, I love what you shared, rather than just going into a pitch. I think that shows a level of maturity.
Yeah, I totally agree with Megan. I think LinkedIn should almost be the most personalized and the shortest messages that you're sending, because I think it is the most intimate platform, because people do use it almost as a social media platform. They're sharing things, they're keeping in touch with people that they've gone to school with or worked with before. And so your LinkedIn messaging should really be, I saw you engage with this. I saw you posted this. I wanted to reach out because I think, XYZ of our platform would be of particular interest to you because value. And meeting drop or something, leave it there, but keep it short and sweet and incredibly personalized.
Yeah, we got a question in the chat from Kevin Chambers. I think this was off what you said earlier, Jessica, about video. Kevin said, do you make a personal video for every client or a general video that you blast out to a bunch of clients? I'm actually curious to hear what you guys do for this, because I've heard both sides of the coin, and I think it's an interesting topic.
That's a great question. We personalize all of our videos. And what's interesting about Drift is that a lot of our sequences, particularly early on, are very personalized. And we do have the benefit of being able to use the drift video portion and almost demo the product. We're sending out videos and create, mock demos and stuff to send people out. And a big key of that is personalizing them to each person. And maybe sometimes if we're using a lot of emails, we'll do it personalized based on the company. For more like generic type emails, maybe lower on in a sequence, but most of them are personalized to the person on the initial outreach.
Yeah, we do both. So it really just depends. We are a very email heavy organization. So sometimes if it's like a campaign that goes out, we'll add a video to it. But one of my favorite ways of using video is after you've already talked to the prospect on the phone. Maybe they say follow up with some content. Maybe you've already booked the demo. Like, I love being able to send a video. My favorite time is in between you talk to them and whenever that demo goes off, right? Are you just gonna allow for all of the craziness to happen in between where maybe it'll lose relevancy, it'll lose meaning, maybe lose excitement? Or are you gonna drop a short video in there saying, hey, loved our conversation as I'm prepping for this meeting. Here's some of the things that I'm excited to go over a little bit more in depth. So that's what I like using it as a little bit more of a value add for follow-up, not necessarily for just those cold.
Yeah, and we've used it for both as well, personalized and not. One of the little nuggets I'll give the audience today is what we did. If we, for example, had a webinar once, we had about 400 people, and we had about 18 different Michaels that were on the webinar. So just to personalize the video, we said, hi, Mike. And you can send it out to 18 people at once. So if you do have some, names like Jennifer, Michael, Jessica, Sean, you might get a lot of people that might join your webinars. If you're doing cold emails, it works very well. If you're looking for VPs of sales with the first name Sean, you might be able to personalize like 10 at once. So it's a little tip that we've done. But yeah, just like Megan and Jessica said, we use it for different things. We use it inside a campaign. We'll use it for following up on webinars, following up on conferences, and also just our with our clients as well.
Nice. That's funny. It reminds me of a time I used ZoomInfo once to pull a list of a bunch of VPs of sales with the name Jed because nobody has that name, and just emailed them all as an icebreaker. But yeah, it's funny.
That's really a good idea. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a unique name, why not go for it, right? It could be people are gonna see it if you email somebody that has the same name as you. Cool. There's another question we have in here. Where I just lost it. Where did it go? Oh yeah, right here. So from Edward, what would be an ideal cadence when reaching out to customers? I think if anybody can speak to maybe just like the cadence format that they have, and then along the lines of keeping it professional and making sure that you stand out. Edward, if you want to provide any additional context to that too, feel free to put it in the chat.
Well, I'll start. So every cadence that we do, we always include at least 2 to 3 different channels. Those channels might include email, phone, always LinkedIn. We try and connect on LinkedIn with any prospect just because it gets a lot more personalized. Now, depending on who the prospect is, if it's cold outreach versus a warmer prospect, it'll depend. Sometimes with a cold prospect, we might do anywhere between 7 to 10 follow-ups, all with different channels, and obviously different days between. But if it's a warmer prospect, it's somebody that might have came to a webinar, it might only be 4 to 6. But that's what we do. And as I said, email, LinkedIn, and phone calling and dialing are the 3 channels that we're using.
Awesome. I can speak to our cadence structure as well, and the way we like to break it up at PandaDoc for the outbound SDRs. We prospect, based on the industry and then the specific persona. So let's say we're in the SaaS industry and we're going after sales leaders. We're going to identify the 3 top pains that a sales leader would come to PandaDoc for, and then the emails we send, each new email is going to hit on one pain, and that allows us to kind of have a 2 or 3 week long cadence with relevant emails that aren't just saying the same thing, because we're hitting on a new pain. So each new thread is a new pain, and then we might follow up that email with like a bump, whether that's like a GIF or a video, or even like a sendoso or things like that, where it's not necessarily anything new. It's more just like trying to direct their attention back to that initial email. And then similar to you, Sean, we have LinkedIn touches, calls in the middle as well. That's pretty much how we break it up.
Really, same thing over here. The one thing I would add is that if it is someone that's coming inbound and really raising their hand and saying, I'm interested, I would suggest before putting someone in a sequence, calling them rather than waiting for an email to go out. The sooner you can get to someone who's raising their hand, the more likely they are to convert.
Yeah. Cool. I had a question too. I'll throw it out to the group here. On the level of being persistent and stalking, sometimes people aren't gonna, answer your email. They're just gonna, you've seen they've viewed all your emails. They're not answering your calls. Maybe they viewed your profile on LinkedIn. For your teams, do you guys have a rule for like maybe when to give up, or how do you know when it's time to give up and maybe let that lead breathe for a little while, or to keep pushing? It's kind of a tough question, but just curious if anybody had something on that.
I wouldn't say we have a rule, but I think if someone's finished a sequence and they've gone through all the steps, I'd say give it, probably at least 2 weeks, maybe a month before you're sequencing them again. And you're also going to want to change up the messaging. You're not going to want to put them in the same exact messaging that they've already received, because it could just be now's not a good time for them. But you don't just want to keep emailing them, reaching out to them every day for, forever.
And I'll just jump in. I like to, sometimes I'll change it and wait till the next quarter. So it gives me an opportunity to say, hey, last quarter it wasn't a good fit for you. How's it look this quarter? Or for example, summertime, or we're getting close to Christmas, holidays, etc. But I would definitely continue to be persistent. I think as a salesperson, your job is to be persistent and know that fine line. So until they say no, I would continue to do something. Even when they say no, I'll still put them in a sequence that might just be 6 months down the road, because you never know if they grow. There's different things that happen in an organization that I just feel like you should never give up. But definitely have a little bit of a break, a little breathing room for the prospect before you climb on them again.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat, and it was Kevin's comment that said, I feel like you stop trying once they block you. And I mean, we are very persistent at ZoomInfo in the sense of, if someone on my team says, yeah, they said no, I just say, call them back next week. They'll forget who you were. We talk with professionals all the time who are getting so many calls, so much content. I think emailing is a little bit different, but when you're calling someone, I love, after someone says no, calling them back next week and being like, Jessica, I was really thinking about our conversation, and honestly, I feel like I missed the mark. I wanted to talk about XYZ. I feel like you'd find a ton of value out of this. It's just been stirring in my mind. Those type of things, I feel like that's where you have that professionalism. But I mean, say if I were to call Jessica again and just act like I never called her in the first place, that's a little bit different. So, because you're having the same conversation. But I mean, reach out to them the next week, next month. It's to the fact, of course, we're going to be respectful if someone's like, please stop calling me, eliminate all communications. It's like, all right, we get your message. But if it's a light no, or I don't think so, that doesn't mean a never, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, Megan, I'm going to give you, ZoomInfo is very persistent. So I get the calls all the time. And what I also find is, and I like the move, is it's always a new account manager that calls me, I'm taking over for this person strategically. But they are very persistent. So whatever you've trained them, they are doing very well, Megan.
good.
That's a good point, though. That's something that on our team we'll do, where maybe somebody's tried this prospect for a couple quarters, and then we'll switch it up. Sometimes you just need a new voice. It's really all it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I love what Megan said about going back and making a call and saying it's really been on my mind. I think you would help. Acknowledging the fact that you talked before. I think that makes it really human and makes it less templated and just humanizes you to the prospect and helps build rapport. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, even going back and saying, and I would even do this when I was an SDR, is if I have a company that I think is a fantastic fit and I just wasn't able to land it on the call, I would even go to my manager and say, hey, I just don't know where I missed it. What other value could I have added? What could I have touched on? And I'll be transparent. I'll tell that to the prospect if I get them again, just saying, hey, like, I know how much you guys would benefit from our tool, that I even went to my manager about it. And I asked him, like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And he was able to fill me in on this thing, and I would really find value, or I think he would really find value in talking a little bit more about it. So I think that transparency aspect too, like, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, 100%. If you're talking, especially with salespeople, I've found, like, if you get a no, like, it doesn't hurt to just say, hey, where did I miss the mark? Like, what would have been more relevant to you? Or, you know, maybe, hey, I'm a new sales rep. What could I do differently here? Any advice you can give me? Doesn't hurt. And especially, like I said, with salespeople, they're usually pretty open to talking and giving that information. It looks like we are at time, though, so I appreciate everybody joining. Thanks again, Jessica, Sean, and Megan. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm sure the same for you guys. If you guys want to give any plugs, feel free to do so.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks
for
everyone.
watching, everyone. This is fun.
Thanks, guys. Bye.